do with the Airless Chalk Misters literally is shake and spray. That's it. It's simple as. We're going to show you the bottle without the label on, just so you can see the contents. And the actual colour looks quite dark. You can see it at the top of the bottle, and it's got a little spot indicator. But the bottle on the right has the chalk all sitting in the bottle of the tube. So by just giving it a good vigorous shake, you can see the colour starts to go sort of more white where the chalk is being dispersed. So just keep going and keep going until you've mixed it up properly, and then you're good to go and use it on all sorts of different projects. I store mine when I'm working on them upside down, let the chalk disperse to the bottom, then after a couple of minutes, if I'm, between projects, I'll just turn them up. So that sort of stops me having to shake them every single time. But as long as they all have a good shake to start with, that's all that matters. When I use the misters, I actually put them in a box and put my project in the bottom, and then I make sure that the spray is all contained within the box, open a window which needs some good ventilation, and I start by spraying off my project. And then if there's any little blockages or anything, you get rid of that on the side before you go on with the fine mist onto your surface, and always replace the lid as soon as you're finished. There's so many different techniques you can do with the misters. Obviously, there's the spraying as it is, which this is quite fine without doing any treatments to it. But here I've just got a cloth. I'm just going to wipe it off and give it some sort of streaky effects. I like this technique. You never quite know what you're going to get. And while the pigment is still wet, you can use your water spritzer to spritz on top, and where the chalk meets the water, it slightly separates. You get this chalky effect, and also I'm picking the excess up again on tissue. I like to use the tissue technique. I use it on a lot of things. It's not necessary, but it does add some extra dimension and texture to your work. What a beautiful background that's going to be for a stamp or a sentiment. Or you could be putting in something that's pre-prepared, just using it for your backgrounds. Really pretty. So we're going to use a stencil onto the background. Obviously we sprayed it once and used the tissue, and then we're going to go over with the purple directly onto the top. Remember to give it a jolly good shake. Again, I start off on the side and then spritz over. I've not used any glue. I don't mind if some of the pigment goes under the stencil. Just give it a light coating. And as I take my stencil off, I'm going to keep that stencil to one side because I'm going to use it in a while. And then I'm going to use my tissue just to wipe some of that pigment off while it's still wet. I don't want to do it all over, just at the bottom, just to make it a bit textural. And I'm also taking some of it off on the top, just again to make it look a bit vintagey. And then if you just go over with a frame, you can isolate the areas that you want to use. That's great for background. So bringing back the wet stencil that I've just sprayed in the box and placing it straight down onto my paper, I use a Bockingford hot press, so it can take lots of water and lots of rubbing and stuff. And then just pressing it down with the tissue just to stop getting it on my hands, and then lifting it up. You could leave it just like this. I love this effect, but just to add an extra dimension, we're using the spritz bottle just to activate the pigment. And even this, just leaving it on its own, it would just bleed and spider into the corners. But I'm going to bring my tissue back again just to lift some of the pigment off, just to lighten it a bit. I love that. I just think it's beautiful. And actually, if I'd have thought about it, I would have put a bit of green on the background before I did this technique, but I'm actually going to do it in reverse. Still with a little bit more pigment, just to see if it's going to move any more. That softens it a bit. But let's bring in that green, and we're just going to spray just a little bit over the top. I don't want to disguise the purple because it's so pretty, and I'm going to bring my cloth in again, and just with a little bit of water, just make it damp. I want to spread the pigment over the top, just very, very lightly. The purple has now dried, so I'm not moving that. It's literally just the green that I'm spreading around. And again, lovely. I wish I'd have done the green in the background, but anyway, it still looks great. Embossing folders. These are a couple that I got from Creative Expressions. Put them through the die cutting machine on an embossing mat so that they're embossed. I've popped them in my basket. Now, I've kept this demonstration in because this is where we've got some little spots on with the pink mister, and I want to include this because there is a very short troubleshooting video we've got on the website, so you can see how to avoid this happening. But I actually love it spotting, and I've got lots of techniques that I show how to use. How to use the pieces of work that have this has happened to, and how to sort out the issue. So I've just spritzed it to move the pigment around, again spreading it with the tissue. Let's dilute it just a little bit more, just to soften it. I'm going to be going over the top, so I want it quite subtle, really. And I'm going to do one in a lighter colour and one in a slightly deeper colour, so you can just see the difference and the contrast. This one I'm going in on with the purple. Take the excess off. I mean, this isn't really a process you can do with paint as such, because it will be too thick. The spray is really, really light, and that's why it works so well with this technique with the folders. So you push it on, and basically you're taking it all off again. So I've let them dry. I've dried them with a heat gun, and then I'm going to do a second coat with the purple again. So I bring in a cloth, a dry cloth, and just spritz into the centre of the cloth. And the knack is to actually take some of the excess off, a bit like if you were stenciling with a brush. You put it on, but you take it off before you actually apply it to your work. And then just by dusting it over the embossing folder, it picks up on the raised areas. Now you could leave it just like that, or if it's too heavy, you could spritz it again just to lighten it. And you do need a good quality paper to be doing this technique, because if it's a porous chalky paper, it will pill. So as I say, I use Bockingford hot press, which will take a fair bit of rubbing without any problems. And you can take off, or actually, if it's too light, you can start adding some more. And then on the purple one, I want to sort of see how dark I can get with this deep purple. It just really highlights the details. I love this. Keep building up or taking off, depending on how deep you want it to be. Again, I want to soften it a little bit with some water. Not a lot, just a little. It's almost a bit like polishing. You're polishing the raised areas of the embossing paper. And then I thought I might just go back in with the pink. Pink is one of my favourite colours of the whole set. And then just dusting again over the top, just to bring a bit of extra colour to the flowers and the leaves. And there we have two different contrasting pieces.